Hello, Ant Farm. Welcome to another Sunday Night Thirst here on Sunday, August 2nd, 2020. We are so glad you guys are here. Let's go ahead and jump right into our announcements for the first week here in August. All right, right off the bat, I want you to know tomorrow's your first day of school for those of you in Cherokee County. If you're at Milton, you still have another week or so before you go back. But I want you to know that I am praying for you guys. I hope you guys have a great day at school tomorrow. My thoughts, my prayers go with you. I hope 2020-2021 school year is a whole lot better than the 2019-2020 school year, okay? So you guys got this. If you need me, call me or text me. But I am here for you guys 24/7. Y'all know that. Our next announcement, nothing really new to report as far as when the students are going to be able to get back together again. We will probably start back up with Zoom in a couple weeks. Once you guys are reacclimated back to school, we'll probably start up with Zoom on Wednesday nights again, about another 2 weeks or so. And then last but not least, man, I still love for you guys to come out on Sunday mornings and worship with us as a church family. We have just the one service going on right now. You can sign up starting tomorrow morning for next Sunday's service. You can go to our church website at AntiochCanton.org and sign up for you guys to come to our worship service as a family. And that way you and I, man, we can see each other, okay? Let's go ahead and continue our greatest hits for worship here in August.
is jealous for me. He loves like a hurricane, high stream, bending beneath the weight of his wind and mercy. When all of a sudden I am unaware of these afflictions eclipsed by glory, and I realize just how beautiful you are, and how great your affection
want to start tonight off by telling you a story. Now, back in the day, there was this guy and this girl from two different tribes of people who wanted to get married. Now, at their wedding reception, the groom told a riddle to some guys from the bride's hometown and made a bet with them that they couldn't solve it. So the guys went to the bride and asked for this really big favor, basically saying, hey, I know y'all just got married, but we need you to get your guy to give you the answer to this riddle. And then we need you to tell us the answer. Oh, and if you don't, we're going to kill you and your parents. Got it? So the bride begged her husband for the answer, and he finally caved. She passed the intel to her hometown bros, and they were able to solve the riddle and win the bet. Now, the groom was very unhappy about this, lost his temper, killed a bunch of their people, and then left town. Maybe a slight overreaction, I think, but the story continues. The bride's dad is like, wow, that's like the worst wedding reception ever. So he assumes that the groom is gone for good. So he gives his daughter to be married to someone else. But after a little time has passed, the groom comes back. And he asks his father-in-law, hey, where's my wife? Dad's like, dude, I thought you were gone, so I gave her to be married to someone else. Why don't you marry her younger sister instead? She's actually more attractive anyway. The groom's like, yeah, that's a no-go for me. And so once again, this groom just totally flips out, and he captures a bunch of foxes, and he lights their tails on fire. Man, can someone say animal cruelty? Now, these foxes run around like their tails are on fire because they actually are. And in the process, they start a wildfire that burns down a bunch of grain, vineyards, and olive groves in the town. Now, are you ready for the really stupid, crazy part? This story is actually in the Bible. Now, it doesn't exactly read that way, the way I just told you, but the basic plot point is there. It's found in the book of Judges, which is in the Old Testament, so the first part of the Bible, in chapters 14 and 15. Now, as a kid, I would hear this story, and I would hear other stories from the Bible, and I would think, man, what does this story from the Bible have to do with my life? Man, teach me to never tell riddles at a wedding reception? Maybe teach me not to set animals on fire? I mean, what is that even about? You know, last week we started a conversation about the Bible, and we said that Jesus is the point of the Bible. And when the Bible is confusing, Jesus is kind of like putting on 3D glasses, and he just makes everything clear. But the truth is, Jesus doesn't show up in a lot of the things that we read. He doesn't actually appear in the story about the foxtails. Jesus helps us see God more clearly, and he helps us see the whole story of God and humans more clearly. But what are we supposed to do with the rest of the Bible? What about verses that just seem weird? Now, if your Bible verse of the day is, let's say Revelation chapter 8, verse 1, which says, when he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. I mean, what are you supposed to do with that? And then there's stories that just seem crazy, like talking donkeys and voices coming out of a burning bush. And then there's commands that just don't make any sense. There's a command in Leviticus for people not to wear clothes that are made from two different kinds of material. So if you're wearing like a cotton and polyester blend, you're in trouble now, right? But that doesn't seem right at all. You know, the point is, sometimes there's a disconnect between what we're told about the Bible and what we actually experience when we read it. We're told that the Bible can change us and help us and guide us, but when we take time to read it for ourselves, it can actually be quite confusing. And how can something so confusing change us and help us and guide us? Is there something that we're missing? Is there a different way to do this? And there is a different way. If there is a different way, would it help us to understand verses like don't wear clothing made out of two different types of fabric? Is there a way for verses like that to be explained? Now, the good news is this. There is a way forward. And understanding what the Bible is and what it's meant to be helps us get to the Bible in a way maybe we haven't been able to before. So let's start with some basics of the Bible. All right, there's two halves of the Bible. There's the Old Testament, also known as the Hebrew Scripture, and then there's the New Testament. The Old Testament is pre-Jesus, so everything before Jesus. And the New Testament includes the life of Jesus and the start of the church after Jesus died and came back to life. But within those two large parts, there's a lot going on. It's a big book. In fact, it's not really a book of all. And here's what I mean. The Bible is actually 66 different documents that are put together. There's poetry books. There's books that includes law that was given to the people of Israel. There are books the people of Israel wrote of their history and wisdom. There's wisdom books, and there's books containing a lot of advice. There are letters, man, a lot of letters written to different people in different parts of the world. And they are all wrapped up in this one giant book here that we call the Bible. To better understand this, I want you to think about the words you have to read in your regular life. Since school starting tomorrow, this isn't going to be a far stretch for you guys. But maybe there's a poetry book that's required reading in your English class. And then there's a textbooks for history. Maybe you're reading a different kind of book that maybe your friend gave you as a birthday or a Christmas gift. And that's super entertaining. And they're nothing alike. Man, you can take all these books, you can stack them up, and they really have nothing in common. But you're reading more than just that as well. After all, there's all these BuzzFeed articles. There's instruction manuals. Some of your friends are giving you comics to read. And then there's all the text messages that you guys get on your phones. And now imagine all these things that you're reading, and they're just smashing together in like one giant pile. And then, you know what? We're going to put a big cover around all of them. And we're going to call that the story of everything. Now, this is the whole life as your life inside of a book. Now, I know this sounds ridiculous, but here's what I'm getting at. We do this to the Bible all the time because all the documents have one big cover around them. We call them the Bible. People get confused and believe it's all the same or it's all in order, and every single piece of it is meant to be read at the same, be read the same way. And sometimes that's confusing. When we read the Bible without understanding what we're actually reading, that we're reading 66 different documents, then we're missing one large, huge, important piece of scripture. We're missing context. Now, sometimes it's helpful for me to think of it this way. I'm not reading the Bible. I'm reading a document found in the Bible. I'm reading a book. I'm not necessarily reading a book. I'm reading a letter that was written to a very specific group of people living in the first century. Or I'm reading a piece of advice that a father wrote down for a son. Or I'm reading a history book recording everything that happened. Or I'm reading a song written to God by someone who knew him very well. Or I'm reading an eyewitness account of someone who actually got to hang out with Jesus. You see, context matters. And that's actually one of my biggest complaints about text messages and emails is that a lot of times, man, you can't get like tone of voice. You cannot get context from a message. Now, context matters. It changes everything in how we read things. So we're going to look at two different passages tonight. And the first is from 2 Timothy. And this is what we know. It's called 2 Timothy because it was the second letter written to a guy named Timothy. Paul, the Apostle Paul, he is a mentor and he's a close friend to Timothy, actually is the one that wrote it. Now, Timothy is his pastor at a church in Ephesus, a church full of people who are struggling with all kinds of things. And here's what Paul writes in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 11 through 13. And this is what he says. Only Luke is with me. Bring Mark with you when you come, for he will be helpful to me in my ministry. I sent Tychicus to Ephesus. When you come, be sure to bring the coat I left at Carpus at Taurus. Also, bring my books and especially my papers. Context makes this make sense. Paul left his jacket and he wants Timothy to bring it back. Let me give you a second example. Now, if you've been around church for any part of your life, then there's a really good chance you have either read or heard this particular Bible verse from Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. And this is what it says. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. Now, with no context, this verse could seem like we just stumbled across the magic genie in the Bible. All right? Without context, man, we can read that verse and we think, man, you know what? I can dunk on a 10-foot basketball goal through Christ who gives me strength. Then we also think, you know what? I can pass Spanish without studying through Christ who gives me strength. And then there's this. You know, some of you guys and girls are thinking this. Man, I can get multiple dates this school year through Christ who gives me strength. Now, with no context at all, this sounds like a formula for living the life of our dreams. But does it mean what we think it means? Here, context changes everything. There's also a letter written by Paul, but this time to an entire church. Imagine if one of our small group leaders here moved to take another job in another state and then wrote to our student ministry this letter to read it out loud during youth group one Sunday night or one Wednesday night. You see, that's the idea of this letter, but there's more. Paul wrote to them from prison after being arrested for his faith. And in this part of the letter, Paul was thanking them for sending him some financial support and acknowledged their kindness. Now, at the same time, he assured them that he didn't need to feel obligated to send more money. Paul let them know that, man, he's going to be okay whether he has a little or he has a lot. He's like, man, you know what? I've got a full stomach and a hungry one. I've learned to be content either way. So this section is actually really about contentment. And Paul is letting them know that he has figured out how to be peaceful and content with his life. Whether life is going great, whether life is going good, or whether life is going bad, as Paul's writing this letter, things are very difficult for him. So, how can Paul find contentment? Even as he writes from prison with very few things going his way, he says again, for I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. Paul was dependent on Jesus. He had his close relationship with Jesus. And that gave him the power and the strength to persevere and to find peace, even when things were tough. So the point isn't so much we can win this game because God is on our side. It's more like because of Jesus, we're going to be okay, whether we have a lot of money or we have just a little bit of money. Whether life is going our way or it's not. We can turn our attention away from circumstances and on to Jesus. And in turn, we can find peace through him. See how this verse changes as we discover context. It helps us understand it better, and it helps us know what we are supposed to do with it now. Think of it this way. Context creates clarity. Think about it this way. Imagine if you found a note on the floor at your school. I know people don't write notes anymore. at least not very often, but just humor me for a second, because that's what we did when I was a teenager. But let's say it was a note. It was exchanged between two different friends in a different class. But one of them dropped it in the hallway. You picked it up, and the note basically said this: "Quit acting like a bully. I said I'm sorry. Why can't you just drop it?" Would you read that note and think, am I acting like a bully to someone? What am I holding on to that I need to drop? Nah, you wouldn't read it that way. You would understand that the note was written to somebody else altogether. You would assume that there was conflict between two different friends, not between you and someone else, but between two different people. And you would accept the fact that there was more to the story than you actually know. But we read the Bible this way a lot. We randomly pick up verses or passages in the Bible, and we have no idea why they were written or who they were written to. And we try to assume that we should do exactly what they say in our own lives, even if that wasn't the point. No wonder it can be so confusing sometimes. Without background and the bigger picture behind the words in the Bible, we're just guessing at what we're supposed to learn from it. Now, don't miss this. If what we said last week is true, if the point of the Bible is to know God better, it's also important. It's too important to just guess at what's going on. If we miss the backstory, if we miss the big picture, we run the risk of missing out on understanding the God behind it all. So instead of being overwhelmed by what we don't understand, let's look for what we can learn in context. The next time you come across a verse that you don't understand, try asking these questions. The first question is this: who wrote it and who was it written to? Sometimes a passage doesn't make sense to us because we don't understand who the audience is. So let's start there. And then this is the second question: why was it written down? You see, 2 Timothy was written to encourage a friend in leadership as a Christian. Philippians was written to remind a group of people that they were loved by God. And Paul, who is the author of this letter, he encourages them to keep following Jesus. And when you can figure out the why, it can make what was written even more clearly and more easily understood. And then the third question is this: what made people think this information should be written down or saved? Now, over the thousands of years since some of these texts were written down, decisions have to be made about what texts would be included and what wouldn't. What about what you're reading? What about what you're reading made people think it was important enough to protect? And here's the fourth question: is it helpful to me or not? The whole Bible is important, 100% important. But not all parts are equally helpful to you in every moment of every day, and that's okay. A tip could be to read a passage of scripture until you bump up against something that is helpful, and then stop there. Think about it. Maybe write down a few of your thoughts and why it's helpful and what you plan on doing with it. The Bible has the ability to change our lives. But sometimes getting to that point that can be life-changing takes more than just closing our eyes and opening up to a page, reading the first words we see. That's why context creates clarity. And clarity helps us discover why it was written down, and the way it was written down, and how it's helpful to our lives right now. And as we discover what's helpful, we become people who are changed for the better. So what if you and I made a decision to quit looking at the Bible with all kinds of confusion and start looking at it with courage instead. Instead of us throwing up our hands, giving up because the Bible doesn't make any sense, what if we approached it with curiosity and put in the effort to discover why things were written? What if we took the Bible seriously, even when things don't make sense immediately? Let's pray. Father, I thank you so much that you give us the Bible for all kinds of things, Lord. And I ask that as we go through and we read the Bible in our personal lives, Lord, that we dive deeper in to get context, to get clarity, Lord, so we can get the bigger picture, not just what may be on the surface, Lord. God, I ask that you put it on all of our hearts. Anybody who's watching this video right now, Lord, to put it on our hearts, to dive in more into the Bible, to get to know you better, and so that we can follow your will for our lives. We love you, and in your son's name I pray, amen. That's going to do it for another Digital Sunday Night Thirst. Man, I tell you what, I miss you guys. And until we are all together again, peace and love to you guys, and I cannot wait to see you soon.